Dragons.
I have 6 o'clock, so I'd like to call this special meeting to order, please.
Public hearing.
Public hearing. The public hearing is first. We're calling the public hearing. The purpose of the public hearing is to give first reading of
No.
this wrong
Public
sheet.
hearing, which one?
There we go. The purpose of this hearing is to provide information to the public about the financial situation of the town of La Pas and assist the public to understand how tax dollars are being spent. This is an opportunity for public participation and input into the town's short and long-term goals. So our CFO, Graham, has a presentation he's going to give everyone. There's a lot of information in there. Make some notes, have some questions. To brace you for some of the good news and the bad news. The bad news first. The 1 mil increase in your property taxes represents about a 1.6% increase. And we're not just going to sit on that money. You're going to see all the places we plan to spend your money over the next few years. A lot of the ambitions or goals that we have right now are somewhat ambitious to complete this year, but I think you folks will be happy with the direction that we're going. So Graham, if you'd like to give us the highlights of your plan, please.
Sure. Okay, yes, I have a little presentation for you here. I'll go through it in a little bit of detail. I won't swamp you with too much information, but if you have any questions, it's a pretty small crowd. Feel free to interrupt me. I'm happy to stop and shed light on anything. Just a bit of a summary on what we're going to talk through here. I'll just jump right into it, though. Everybody is probably, I know I've seen a lot of familiar faces here. You're probably pretty familiar with how the assessment works. Obviously, assessment's handed down from the province. That's not something we come up with. We just set the mill rate. So, anybody who has any questions about their assessment, where the numbers come from, anything like that, please get in touch with the province. And if you don't know how to do that, give us a call. We'll direct you in the right direction. So. All right, so this year, here's a breakdown of overall what we're looking at. So we have about 12.8 million in total budgeted expenses. We've got about 5.7 million coming in other revenue outside of taxes. Debentures still the same, 718. This is the last year for one of the debentures, as you'll see later on. We have a little bit of tax allowance, and that is the total cost in tax dollars to the taxpayer there, the 6.3 million, and the debenture is separate as well. So that is how we come up with our mill rate for the year. Everybody hear me? Yeah? Okay. Am I talking too loud, too quiet? Here's just some detail on the breakout of what the mill rate is. I know in the past the at-large is included. I tried to break out what we put into reserves every year just to give people an idea. There is no deficit recovery this year, so that's a bit of difference. The Kelsey School Division went down a little bit, same thing. So we're paying about 2410 compared to 2365 on $100,000 of total assessment. So a pretty nominal change. So we did see an overall increase in our assessment base this year. It's, again, pretty nominal overall, but it is a positive change. I expect with the lake properties developing in the next couple of years, we'll probably see that grow a little bit again. Policing costs continues to be a challenge for us in the PAW. It is a big part of our budget. As you'll see in a later slide, I have a bit of a breakdown of department by department of where the dollars go. It is a pretty big cost for us. The second biggest after the school, which it isn't so much a cost for us, but a cost to taxpayers. When you look at your tax bill, a lot of people lump it together, but school is huge. So we figured this is about 17% of your total tax bill goes to policing services in the PAW. So there has been a bunch of presentation changes. I'm not sure if this interests anybody other than accountants, but historically we've treated the museum as a grant. But that's not appropriate because we are in control of the museum, so we had to break it out, revenues and expenditures. Looks a little funny on the financial plan, but it makes more sense going forward. So, same thing with recreation. Now we split it up into recreation, the pool, and the arena, so you can see where those dollars go by area instead of just all lumped into one line. For the education property tax credit, there is a little bit of a change this year, and I know this isn't something we did, but it's going to affect some taxpayers in the lower tax bracket. Historically, the province has granted up to the 750 education property tax after the 250 deductibles. Some of that could have been applied to your municipal taxes, and they no longer are doing that. Now they are only applying it to education taxes. So what that does is that raises the threshold on those bottom end assessments, so almost doubles it before you see a savings. Deficit recoveries. So there was no deficit recovery for 17 or 18 for the town. We had surpluses both years, so there's nothing on that end. We did have utility fund deficits for both years. They don't affect the mill rate. It's not anything like that. This goes, it's just a recovery through accumulated surplus, sorry. However, just for information purposes. We'll talk again, like I said, about the surplus sale of lots. We did clear out those lots in 2018. Now we're going to start seeing some building this year if people are going to honor the agreements. So we should see some houses go up. We should see some assessment values increase, which should be good overall for the town and bringing the mill rate down. The Rose project was another big completion in 18. So that project being done right at the end of the year, we should see us moving on to something else now. And we'll talk about that shortly. So the financial strategy from 19 is very similar to 18. What we're trying to focus on is looking at ways to reduce our inherent costs or overhead. We do have a number of older assets that are costly to maintain, this building being one of them. So we're looking at efficiency upgrades where we can cut down those ongoing costs and save a little bit of money in the long haul. This is a little small to see, but this is a department by department breakdown of where your dollars are being spent. Again, obviously the biggest part of your taxes goes to school fees. It's more than a third, 17% to policing, 13% to general government, and 11% to public works. Those are the highlights there. There are a few bigger grants in 2019, and those, the CKPI grant, there's the clinic grants, the physicians. These all kind of tie into a little bit higher of a percentage for general government than you would normally see. In 2020, you should see that drop significantly. Debentures, good news, one of our debentures is up this year. Last year we have to pay it. Sadly, we'll probably have to take another debenture out for the lagoon, which is a huge project for us, but it does clear a pretty significant payment for us, about $150,000 a year. In terms of where we're financing our reserves, we've got contributions of about $1.4 million planned. The tax-funded ones are about $447,000. The remainder are outside revenue sources that we put away for specific projects. We've got about $2.8 million in spending planned from those reserves. Again, some of the highlights there, the Forestry Initiative grant for CKPI, this will be the last year of that. That one is just shy of $500,000. The Civic Senate boiler, we got about just over $250,000. And we've got some machinery replacement planned. You can see all the details on page 13 of the plan if you're interested. The Transportation Public Works budget, one of the things that always seems to confuse people is the airport's getting lumped in with transportation. It's just part of the way the provincial template's set up. So I like to show when we back out the airport what we're actually doing for public works itself, which is your road maintenance and stuff like that. So about $1.2 million spent or planned to spend in 2019, which is a little bit less than what we had planned in 18. And the airport generates a profit, a small profit, but it operates at a net positive to the town, so. I know there's always talk about the airport, but it currently doesn't cost us any money to operate. Here's a breakdown of all the grants this year. So as you can see, it's a little bit higher than last year. We have a couple bigger items going through. I know council's pretty pleased to be involved in the physician recruitment. We've got 3 physicians coming in that we signed a joint deal with the RM. Some of the standard grants, the handy van. I do have the Trappers Festival on there. It's not a cash grant, it's more of an in-kind. We do some services for them for setup. There is some property tax incentives. Recycling center is a little bit higher this year. It may not end up being that high. They request capital money every year and then they don't necessarily use it, so we might have to work with that. So again, last year for CKPI, it varies year to year based on the mill rate. So the mill rate went up this year by 1 point. So you see that the grant is a little bit higher as well. So there was again, I don't know the history too much, but there's a incentive, and it's right on our website, for building where you increase the value of a single family home or you build a new, I think it's 4+ unit. I think there's a property tax grant incentive. Basically, they're refunding a portion of your tax on a new build or increase in value with the drive to be, we want people to make those improvements that therefore drive up our assessment value going forward. I think on the residential, it's about $100,000 in value, so it's not like someone's painting their fence. It's a major renovation to probably a dilapidated building. And then for those multi-unit family homes, like I think it's 4 or 5+ units. So the new units would then be, I'm trying to remember, I think it's 10 years. And then it's scaling back. So I think it goes like 90, 80, 70% all the way through. And then at the end, you're back to paying full taxes. So just to encourage people to build and upgrade. So there hasn't been a lot of takers. It's unfortunate. I don't think that would be legal. No, I don't think that would be legal. I think that there is an incentive with, I think our bylaws encourage for dilapidated property, there's potential fines and whatnot, but again, that's not really my area. I think the people that aren't improving their homes often can't, is unfortunately the case. We had planned to do this last year and we just ran out of time. We're looking at selling off some of our surplus equipment. I know we do have an extra Zamboni and some other equipment that we're trying to get rid of. I'd like it to be an ongoing thing just to avoid us collecting things up. There is occasionally lots for sale. I know we still are holding on to a couple. One we just cleared, there was a burnt down house on, so hopefully we'll be able to sell those off as well and generate a little bit of profit, maybe hopefully get the assessment up if somebody builds. Here is our capital plan, some of the highlights anyway. We are looking at, again, the Civic Center boiler. Council also wants to look at an annual road resurfacing. We're looking at maybe locking down a contract where we can do a little bit every year and see some improvements over the long haul. There is a crosswalk planning to go up, a couple pieces of equipment to be purchased that are just aging out. The arena sign and floor, just general improvements overall. So we are looking at doing some engineering for a future project on Bagshaw, which is one of the roads and infrastructure areas that we know we have some problems on. So. And other big capital projects, again, it is detailed out on the financial plan, but the lagoon is going to be probably the biggest one for us. I know we're still trying to nail out some of the details, but the anticipated cost is about $15 million. So we're hoping to get that started maybe this year, next year. So. The landfill is not the way our, again, I mean, maybe I shouldn't be the one talking about this, but there is a Do you want to?
Sure. The landfill's not in there, Vince, at this time, because we're still on that regional landfill concept idea. And there's been a few interesting wrinkles in the last few weeks, and we're just trying to weed our way through that at this point in time. And I think we have about 2 to 3 years left on our landfill right now.
Maybe more now.
Maybe a bit more now, given recent changes. So that's why it's not in the budget for this year.
Yeah, so and we're not anticipating a cost there at the moment. That may change. And that's it. That's short and sweet, my presentation. If you guys have any questions, let me know. If you want to ask me questions privately afterwards as well, I'm around, absolutely.
That's the overview. If you take a moment and if you look at the capital budget portion of the plan, it breaks down a little more detail of some of what council's planning to do going forward. As Graham touched on there, we've allocated $400,000 for asphalt renewal in the community. We've made a commitment to try and do that in each of the next year, over the next 4 years, to allocate $400,000. And the interesting thing is that it won't really impact taxation because we receive about $250 or so a year in gas tax money, and we get about another $135 or $40 from the province, from the Roads and Bridges Fund. So we have the money, and we're going to fix the streets, right? If we have a theme for this council, it's to fix what we have. We've put money in there we've allocated in the budget money to do things like fix the arena floor, fix the arena sign. Some of you may have been on Reader in the last few days. They've done some work on Reader already, and it's not a lot of work, but it's already having an impact. Clearly, our streets need some attention. So we're really focusing on trying to fix our streets and our town up quite a bit. That's a big priority for this council. So, yeah, go ahead, Vaughn.
Who's responsible for repairs or maintenance to Grace Lake, or is that department or provincial?
It's highways up to a certain point, and then it'll be the new owner. New owner, when they get the land.
Oh, out of Grace Lake, I was thinking that.
Yep. We've paid some attention to the humidity problem at the pool, so we've been working on that because that's an issue. There's quite a few things that we're paying some attention to try to fix. If we can change the boiler in the Civic Center, the one over here, trying to budget with propane has been horrendous. Because the propane costs are up and they're down and they're up and they're down. Even though Manitoba Hydro was raising the rates, I think on Saturday, it's 2.3% approximately. Well, we all know that it's a 2.3% increase. When you look at our propane costs for the last year, they're way over budget, just way over budget. So it's going to cost some money to invest in the future, but it'll be much, much better from a planning perspective. This isn't good the way it is right now. Any questions? You're such a quiet crowd.
Good presentation,
Yeah. Well, if there's no further questions, I guess we'll close the presentation. And in saying that, we'll call to order the special meeting. The purpose of the special meeting is to give first reading to bylaw 4593, being a bylaw of the town of The Pas, to impose and levy property taxes for the town of The Pas for the fiscal year 2019. Somebody should have a resolution.
You're the agenda? I'm the agenda. Okay, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Adoption of the agenda.
Yeah. So moved by myself, second by Councillor Atkinson, be resolved that the agenda be adopted as presented.
There you go. Thank you. Question? All those in favor? All right, carried. Bylaw 4593.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Ward, be resolved that bylaw number 4593, being a bylaw of the Town of the Paw to impose and levy property taxes for the Town of the Paw for the fiscal year 2019, be read a first time.
All right. Any questions? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Just one reading tonight?
Yep. Tomorrow will be the second.
Tomorrow, second and third. Motion to adjourn. Thank you for coming, folks. Tomorrow night, we give second and third reading. You're welcome to come. It'll be just as exciting.